keep people are rolling in. Let me know where you're find the chat box. Let me know where you're coming in from. And once the live stream connects, we will kick it off. We'll go ahead and share my screen. We got people from Vegas, got people from all over the place. Tennessee, some Florida. Love it. Okay, share this one. Okay, screen share is going now. Find the chat box. Let me know that you can see it, that you can hear me all right, because we're about to go live. We're about to kick it off. Present. Present. All right. So I hope you're here to learn about some real estate, because we're going to show you how you can go through a, a deal evaluation. And by the end of it, I think you'll get your head around it to the point to where you can evaluate a new deal in 5 minutes or less. It's a quick back the napkin type approach so that you can get through as many deals as you can. It's an important principle. All right. Confirm you can see me. Let me know where you're from. Let me know that you can see my screen, which looks like you can. Oh, and it says that I'm Peter Conti, which I am not. I'll fix that. Rename. All right. We got somebody from Atlanta. We got we got people from all over. So let's do this. We are beginning now. So we're here to learn how to evaluate a multifamily deal in 5 minutes or less, so that at the end of this presentation, you'll know how to get that done. Okay, so imagine quickly if you were able to get a property under contract, close on it, and it was a 50, 60, 70, 100 unit apartment complex, and it made $10,000 a month in revenue for you in your life, net income to your life. Like, what kind of difference would that make in your life? And imagine the possibility of realistically owning a 50 unit apartment complex and owning it for 3, 5 years, and then refinancing it or selling it and being able to pull $1 million out of the project and put it into your basically your bank account, your back pocket, cash, liquid cash, before taxes, but liquid cash. What would that do for you? And I'm gonna tell you that that is a very real possibility. With commercial real estate, you are really only one deal away. And I'm going to show you today during this presentation how you can sort through all that and actually make that a reality for you and your life. I mean, because we've helped people do it, and we know it's possible. So, my agreement to you is by the end of this presentation that I will show you how you can realistically get this kind of property under contract, how you can run the numbers, and how you can get started in commercial real estate if you haven't already, or to take the next step on the ladder to buy your next bigger property so that you can build your empire. Very realistic, very practical. We're going to get into it in just a minute. Okay. You got all the tech lined up, and now we're going to keep rolling. So I want to introduce you or introduce myself to you if you haven't met us before. Peter Conti is the founder and visionary that started Real Estate 101. I'm Peter's partner, Paul Thompson. I'm the CEO of the company. And together, I believe that we have something like 42 years of combined experience, and I guess in counting. I have bought a lot of properties. Peter's bought a lot of properties, and he and I have bought properties together. And we own lots of units, and we have raised a good amount of money. So this isn't something we're just pulling out of the van down by the river. We've actually done this business. And so I want to give you a quick background on how I got here, and maybe you can take some corollaries from it. So I started off as a corporate engineer, and in the I got a job as an engineer, got into the corporate world, and I had a bit of a wake up call moment. 15 years into my career, I hoped and wished and dreamed all that time that I wish I had some sort of idea about how to get into the business or how to do my own thing, but I just lacked the experience. I lacked the ingenuity to come up with my own idea. I didn't have an Uber or a Facebook or an Airbnb in my back pocket. I missed the memo on those, and so I was trying to figure out what could I do differently. I just didn't have an idea, and so I just kind of lost track of that dream, and I got kind of wrapped up into life and got married, had kids, got an MBA, kind of started working my way up the corporate ladder in my industry and the corporate jobs that I had. And about 15 years into my career, we went on a big vacation to a white sandy beach, Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is the closest beach to where we live in Arkansas. It was something we did when the kids were little, quite a bit. And during this vacation, we had a chance to extend our stay. The place that we were staying, the beach house, the people afterwards coming after us canceled. And so they offered it to us at a discount to stay another week at the beach. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. My kids were both out of school for summer vacation, and we had the money to stay longer. The only limitation was that I had a job. And so I called my boss up, knowing I'd been with the company for a long time and had many years of service. All of my employees were remote employees anyway. All I did is sit on conference calls anyway. I worked for an internet service provider, which allowed the very technology of video conferencing like this to work. And even 2015, this wasn't a stretch for technology. And I called up and said, we got a chance to stay another week. I'll work my normal shift. I'll cover all the kind of stuff. My kids will just play at the beach, and I'll stay at the house. My wife will watch them. I'll do my normal thing, but I'll just be, in Alabama instead of in Arkansas. I'm sure there's probably not a problem, but just wanted to double check. He's like, oh, no, no, no. We don't do that here. I expect your tail back at the office Monday morning, 8 a.m. Click. And I'm like, okay, well, that's that. I did not expect that. Was very disappointed. I was pissed, frankly. My wife understood. She's an adult. My kids didn't understand because they had kind of thought that we were going to stay. They were very upset, and I felt deflated. And I remember packing up our van and driving off to leave the beach and looking in the rearview mirror of our van and seeing my kids resigned to their fate in their car seats. And I felt like this small. I mean, I felt like, what was I teaching my kids? I was mad. I was frustrated. I felt like a loser. Um, and that was the moment for me as a wake up call that it's like, I will never, ever be in a situation where I ask permission of somebody else to spend time with my family. I've got to flip the script somehow. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I'm not going to live like this anymore. Mm. And I went back to work, and I was just a miserable corporate drone. And I wanted out of that place so bad I couldn't stand it. And I had to find some alternative. I looked for all kinds of things. I looked for buying a franchise, I looked for becoming an insurance agent. And I just felt like I would be buying myself another job. Like I'd be stepping into this guy's shoes, just in a different place. And it occurred to me that I'd been thinking about real estate in the past. I was a real estate agent for like 2 seconds before the crash. And I thought, well, I learned a little bit back then. Maybe I can just do this real estate thing. And so I just went on a search and found that income producing property was my path to creating freedom. I wasn't going to buy, like, I started with single family. So I wasn't going to buy one deal and change my life. So I went on a tear buying single family houses, and I bought something like 40 houses in 3.5 years. I was averaging one house a month. I was super aggressive because to get enough units to replace your day job, you need a lot of units. And then one day it hit me that, you know, why didn't I just buy an apartment complex? Like, uh, why didn't I just buy this 50 unit apartment complex? And because, and a little of the part of the reason was I was intimidated by the numbers. I was intimidated by the size of the deal, and I didn't think that I could actually pull it off. And then when I did, I thought, man, I bought a 50 unit apartment complex, and it was a little bit harder than buying a single family house, but it was not 50 times harder than buying a single family house. And I was over here running all over town, managing properties and looking for deals. And I could have just bought a couple of apartment complexes and had way more units. And so that's the advantage that we like about commercial is that it's scalable. You can get in and make a big difference in your life with only one deal. And then all the normal advantages of commercial that are real estate in general, which is income and, creating equity and creating wealth, the tax advantages. And then, of course, I believe right now a big opportunity is the silver tsunami. There's a bunch of people retiring now. The greatest or the boomers are now retiring, and they're transferring a lot of their wealth to Generation X and the boom and then millennials. And there's a lot of them that you can buy, especially when you know how to run the numbers. So let's talk about the challenge. Some people are overwhelmed by the terms of commercial real estate. It's a little more complicated than single family. They don't know how to calculate the numbers. We're going to solve that today, right now. And the math is just a little bit overwhelming for. Okay, not a big deal. Uh, let's figure out how to solve that. So there are really three simple approaches or three simple steps to running the numbers to figure out if a given deal is a good deal or not. Those three steps are you want to gather the facts, you want to run the numbers, and then with the numbers that you can do in 5 minutes or less, you make a decision, go, no go. It is really that simple, and I'm about to walk you through it. And by the end of this, you'll be able to do it in 5 minutes yourself as well. Okay. So gather the facts. We start with income. So you take the monthly rent from a given property. You look for any extra income like laundry or parking. And then you also try and find out what the going market rents are. Like if the property were all fixed up and well managed, what is the market rent for a given unit right now? Because it might be different than what the current rents are. Not always, but sometimes. And then you want to know the expenses. So revenue minus expenses equals profit. So what are the expenses? It's best to get the real numbers from the seller or the broker. This is often referred to as a T12. It shows you the income and expenses for the actual last 12 minutes, the trailing 12 months. That's what it means. But a lot of times that's unavailable. And so for an apartment complex, we assume an expense ratio of 45%. And then we typically assume a 5% vacancy rate. It is possible to get a little bit better vacancy rate than that, but it's really tough. And you're always going to have somebody turning over in a given portfolio or a apartment complex. And so we just assume that there's going to be a 5% vacancy rate. And that's really an apartment complex that's kind of operating at its optimum typically. And then you want to know what the prevailing market terms are for a mortgage. So, for example, in any given market, you can go to a local bank and say, I want to buy this 50 unit apartment complex. What are your terms for a deal like that? And they'll say something like, we require a 75% loan to value max loan. And so we require 25% down. We have they'll quote you well, it's not a quote. They'll just give you an estimate for what the market rate is. And let's say it could be 7%, it could be 6%, it could be 10%, it could be 2%, depending on when you're watching this. It could be, and it's typically like a 20 to 25-year amortization schedule. And then there's usually something like a 3 to 5 to 7 year balloon, meaning that the entire loan comes due when the balloon pops. And they'll tell you these things. You don't really need the balloon in order to do the calculations, but it's good to know those terms. Step number 2 is to run the numbers. Once you've collected the data, you can run the numbers. And really, the hard part of this is not the numbers itself, it's collecting the data, having the data to then run your numbers. Once you have your data, then it's pretty easy to get this done. And so we're going to actually run through a real life example that I pulled off of Crexy.com. So this is a 12-unit apartment complex in Kansas that is for sale for a 600,000 listing. I'm noticing there I have a typo. 600K million is not the right information. It's a 600K listing. And so let's use the information and let's dive in. Okay, so to do this, we go to Crexy.com. You do a search for seller financing or whatever. You can leave this part right here blank, or you can, or you can put in seller financing, owner financing, and select the type of properties in the location. In this case, multifamily. And I put in seller financing, for example. And this is just a possibility of what the things that come back for. I think on this listing, there were 500 listings that came back with the term seller financing in the US. And this could be a mobile home park, storage, flex space, storage facilities, apartments, whatever you're into. And so you'll notice in these listings, they have these view flyer or view OM, which is offering memorandum. This is the information about the property. So on this slide, when I pulled up this actual listing, this is the information it gave me. Multifamily units, 12 units, owner financing available. And then they went on to tell me what the rents were, which we'll get to now. So let's calculate the income for this, a real example. Pulled it live off the internet, pulled the information. This is a real possibility. So 1,200 or 12 units. Current rents are 650. They say the new rents could be 750. Just interesting information. The currents are 750, so that's what I'm going to focus on. And in this case, there's no extra income. It's just a simple 12-unit rental. And so now you want to determine the expenses. In this case, there were none provided. And since this is a multifamily deal, we're going to assume a 5% vacancy and a 45% expense ratio. And when it comes to owner financing, in this case, it was there's no loan involved. So we're not going to be given a quote from a lender. We're going to work that out with the seller because they're willing to do seller financing. An example of this working is Erin. She's in our Commercial Dream Partners program, and she has purchased 3 mobile home parks. She is a 4th under contract, and a couple of these she bought with seller financing. And she used the same mechanism to decide, yes, no, should I dig in further? And she actually got her 4th property under contract while traveling in her RV with her family. So you can do this kind of business from wherever you have access to a phone or internet. And so let's do the math. Remember, 12 units, each rent for 650. And then we're going to do a times 12 here because there's 12 months in a year. And then we're going to take out the vacancy rate. So the reverse of that is the occupancy rate of 95% or 1 minus 0.05. So these numbers multiplied together equals a little over $88,000. You take that $88,000 and then multiply it times 1 minus the expense ratio. So we want the revenue from this, which is less the expense ratio. So that's 88,000 times 0.55. which gets you just a little over 48 grand or a little shy of 49 grand. You take that 49 grand and or a little less, divide that by the proposed purchase price, and you figure out that that is a 8.5 or 8.15 cap rate. So it's an A cap. And the cap rate, if you're not familiar, is short for capitalization rate. And if you were to buy this property for all cash, how much cash would come back to you? So it's when you buy all cash, it's the performance of the given asset. So you buy this property, you're gonna get an 8% return if you buy it all cash, given these assumptions. So that is something good information. Now we want to divide the net operating income. That is your revenue minus expenses equals your NOI. In this case, 48, a little less than $49,000 divided by 12 so we can get to the monthly number of net income per month. This is important because we need to figure out how much we can afford to pay the seller in a mortgage. So this 4,075 is the number you need to start your negotiation. The 4,075 in this case is the monthly net operating income, or and that gives you room for your profit and the debt payment to the seller, or to the lender, actually. So we're going to take that number and do just a little bit more math. $4,000 and change is the number you need, and that covers your payments and your profit. So let's say that I want to make $150 per unit per month. So 1,500 times 12 is 1,800, and that's the 1,800 is the profit that me as the buyer of this property wants to receive. So I take that out of the 4,075, and that gives me a $2,275 budget for a mortgage or for seller financing. So with a 10% down offer, I can buy this property with 10% down, 60 grand, $540,000 of a financed amount. At this case, at 3%, ends up being a $2,276 payment. And like these are like pennies from each other. So this tells me that I can afford to put 10% down and afford to make this payment while still making $1,800 of net cash flow per month. So 1,800 of net cash flow per month times 12 is your annual net cash flow. And then divide that by your down payment of 60 grand, and that gives you a 36% return on investment. Not a bad deal. Would you manage and buy a 12-unit apartment complex using seller financing at 3% interest with $60,000 down and a 36% return on your money and make $1,800 a month? Not too bad, right? I think I'd do that deal. And this was legitimately a deal that I did not conjure up. This is a real deal as listed on Crexy at the time of this recording. So I'm going to share with you a friend of mine named Rachel. She started the business when she was in her 20s. She's become a multi-millionaire in her 30s. She owns lots of multifamily. She owns storage facilities. Her husband bought a tire shop using the same technique. And she runs successful real estate brokerage. She's become a very savvy businesswoman. And she would be the first to tell you that she's not good at running numbers, or she's not a math whiz, but she can do this math. And she can do this math really well. Because it's really that simple. It's not that hard, right? It's like it's revenue minus expenses. You make sure something's annual or for monthly. It's not that bad. And so when you get these numbers back, again, once you collect them, you can run that number on your calculator in 5 minutes or less very quickly. And once you do it a lot, you'll be able to do it pretty fast. Like I'm able to run that number in those calculations in probably a minute or two. And I get a sense of what the property is listed for. Is this a go or no go? Is this something that I would like to dig in further with, or do I need to go talk to the seller or broker and get a deep discount? Nine times out of 10, it's a no-go. Just like this is not, you call them up, hey, I'm running numbers. I don't see the cash flow in this at the listing price. What am I missing? If I'm going to buy this all cash, it's going to have to be a whole different conversation than what you're saying. And so, uh, is the seller negotiable because I can't make it work at these numbers? In this case, it was a go because it was a good deal. I would call them up and say, I was still trying to negotiate probably, but I would be really fast about trying to get a hold of that listing and work that deal if I wanted that property in Kansas. And so next steps for you is to pull listings and practice running these numbers. You don't have to actually even make the offer, just practice running numbers and figure out where you're getting stuck. What part of this process is not clear to you? Like where are those problems? Where are those numbers hanging you up? And then you can join our commercial investor launch toolkit for free. Scan that QR code. And when that QR code comes up, you can sign up and we'll send you a bunch of resources from Real Estate 101 that me and Peter put together for you. And that will get you started. It'll get you launched in this business with some really incredible resources that we're just throwing out there so we can empower you to go out there and run the numbers and make offers. So you can get confident with how to run this business. You can also join our school community. This is an experiment that I'm currently running. I'm growing a school community where which is also for free, and just where you'll see the recording of this is probably where you're watching this, is in the school community. And if you're watching this live, you can go and grab that so you can become a member of the school community and have a conversation with us out there. Let us know what's going on, and I'll be doing continuous live workshops that you'll get notices about inside the school community, plus other fun games, and uh, we'll do we'll throw out some rewards for people who are most engaged and active in the group. And then if for any reason you are interested in taking your business to the next level and you're looking for mentorship, you can scan this QR code. That's a program called the Commercial Dream Partners, and it's not for everybody. It is not required. If you're looking to speed up accelerate your learning, then a good place to do that is uh, in the Commercial Dream Partners program. Um, and the whole idea behind mentorship is that it speeds up you learning how to run the business. So basically, we all have an ignorance tax on something in our life. We're born into this world naked, completely vulnerable, and not know the language, and we spend the rest of our lives time overcoming our ignorance gap. There's a tax that we're that we're always paying, that we are trying to pay down, and you can pay that down with time and energy and a bunch of internet sleuthing and research, and you can learn it all yourself. There's no question about it. If you want to go faster, that's when you use the mentorship. So you will spend money to save time. If you don't have money, you spend your time to make up for not having the money. Okay, let me know what questions you have. I ran through that pretty quickly. Um, One question is back on the numbers. How did I get this number, the cap rate, or what is the cap rate? So the cap rate just is a way to measure how a given property is performing. And so uh, the way we compare mobile home parks to multifamily to stocks to different things is to find the capitalization rate of the asset, and the asset's return on investment if you buy all cash is the cap rate in commercial real estate. The question? Mm, Another question is, what do you do once you actually have this number, um, and the numbers don't work? Then you got to negotiate. You have to go back to the seller and say, I'm trying to make it work, but there's not enough income in the property for this. Um, And again, this math is based on assumptions. So the process is you get the property, you do this kind of level back the napkin, and let's say it works out like this one did. You contact the seller and say, okay, I'm real prepared to make an offer, but I'd like to see the actual expenses so I can confirm what I'm seeing is correct. And then you pull real numbers from the seller, real numbers from the broker, and you give them their trailing 12, T12, and then you see how close you really are. And they may not be as efficient. Their expense ratio may be higher. They may have more vacancy than this. That's what you need to find out. All right. Another question that came through is, excuse me, how do you calculate this mortgage? Using a mortgage calculator. The only part of this business that has hard math is calculating the mortgage. And so, what I do is I use a financial calculator tool on the website. Just search for financial calculator or mortgage calculator, and there's tons of them on the internet. And you type in that this was that this was the loan balance is 540. That I want to make a payment of 2275, and then you're looking for what interest rate works. If you put in 6%, then this payment goes way up, probably over $4,000, and it doesn't make sense anymore because there's no cash flow. So you're looking for a mortgage payment that is good enough that the seller will accept it, but low enough that it gives you room to make money in the deal. And if you're not making money on the deal from day one doing cash flow, don't do it. It just doesn't make sense. All right. Yeah. One of the questions is if they don't like the 3% rate, what do you do? Um, so you can basically what I tell the seller is they listed it for 600 grand, and I'll say I'll give you your price, but I need to make terms that make sense for me. Does that seem fair? Does it make sense you to um, for you to be able to sell the property, for me to take on the management of the property, and for me to make money managing the property? Does that make sense? Because if it doesn't, then why am I here? And it varies by everybody you talk to, but in a lot of cases they get it. They're oftentimes, especially if they're baby boomers retiring, they're oftentimes less concerned about the interest rate, and they're more concerned about the down payment and or the monthly payment. They're probably most concerned about the monthly payment, or actually they're probably most concerned about the sales price, which I'll say I'll give you your sale price. I'm not going to negotiate you off your $6,000 one penny. What I want to do is I want to um, give you the price that you need, and then I need to make sure that everything else on the terms makes sense for me. Yeah, good question. And I think to me, the money in this business is in that part of the conversation. It's understanding getting to the NOI number and using that as your your grid to find an offer that makes sense for the buyer or the seller at a price that they want. And you can use, I mean, the combinations of that are staggering. So that's the magic in the business. Okay, school community, grab these if you haven't already. Grab this link as well. And what I'll do here is actually I'll just grab all of the links that are relevant, drop in the chat for anybody who wants them. Somebody was asking about Commercial Deal Finder. To everyone. Boom. Okay. There's the Commercial Deal Finder, the Dream Partner application. If you want to book a call uh, to learn more about the Commercial Dream Partner program, and if you're interested in our Commercial Investor Accelerator, which is the software that allows you to basically run a business around this. Okay. What other questions you guys got? I probably have about another 5, maybe 10 minutes in me. Do you see how you could run the numbers? Like once you get the data, how quick it is. Revenue minus expenses equals net, in the revenue is the income. The rent's the property times 12, right? And like that's revenue. The expenses, if they don't have them, you use 45%, just to see if you're in the right ballpark. And then and divide that into the purchase price, cap rate. Um, there you have it. I'll say one of the questions is about due diligence. So let's say you make an offer like this, they give you the T12, and you actually get really close to real numbers, and you're really confident that this is still a good deal for both parties, and you would like to do the deal. Then you make an offer to the property, or you make an offer, and then yeah, you can still do it virtually. Like, but I would still go look at the property. During your due diligence, you may go look at the property. So I actually have a friend of mine that lives in New Zealand. His name's Hadar. He owns hundreds of properties in the U.S. and he still buys. And when he does buy a new property, he flies to the U.S. from New Zealand and takes a look at it because he just wants to put his eye on the property. Especially when first getting started, I wouldn't buy a property sight unseen. You need to go look at it after you've done everything else. Like you've had your property manager go look at it, like that sort of thing. Like don't be real quick to run out and look at properties until you've done everything else. Right? What other questions? Yeah, I think the takeaway from this is um, go practice, run some numbers, see how good you are at it. And then you can get more sophisticated with your analysis with more involved tools, but that's the quick and dirty way to do it. 5 minutes or less. Is this something I'm gonna have a conversation about? Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna see if there's any more questions. I'll give it maybe a minute or two. If there's no more, then we can adjourn. Yeah, I'm glad it was helpful. Uh-huh. The formula, um, you can look at. Actually, I might. Let's see. No, formula. It's right there. So it's uh, monthly rent times the number of units times 12, which is the number of months, times one minus expense ratio times one minus or one minus the vacancy ratio times one minus the expense ratio. And that gives you your NOI. Somebody asked if I always use 3% on the interest rate when I'm doing seller financing. And yeah, I try to get below 6%. 3 or 4% is preferable. Why should I pay 6 or 7% to a seller when that might be what I could find in the open market from a lender? Cool. Yeah, maybe I will put that into a quick PDF on how to run numbers in 5 minutes or less. If I do, I'll drop it in school. Okay, great questions. I appreciate y'all's participation. Uh, take a look at this. Grab your links if you're interested. Find me in the school community and look forward to the next live workshop. Everybody have a good time. Have a good evening. Have a good day whenever you're watching this. And I'll see you next time.